Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's session of BookBytes, the Ramadan edition. We've had a spiritually inspiring string of sessions this past few weeks, and it's been such a great educational experience and such a reviving, refreshing experience for the spirit as well. In our first show, of course, we started with Sheikh Ali Hashim, who talked us through Revelation, the early verses of Revelation, rather, and some beautiful du'as from the Qur'an. And we had last week we had Muallima Shakira Hunt, who spoke about her book, the companion journal, Karibni Ilaik Ya Qur'ani, this intimate title of bringing closeness to the Qur'an. And so, what better way to take this further than to speak to some of our very own book curators in the country? I've always enjoyed walking into a bookstore, whatever variety it might be, or anywhere in the world. And in South Africa, we have some of the best spaces curated by book lovers. The bigger stores, but also the tiny little bookshops that have had the greatest traction in terms of educating us, enlightening us, bringing us reads from around the world. I've picked out for today just to showcase two of my favorite booksellers who are such lovers of the book. But in this particular focus, I've asked them to focus on our reading of the Quran, Quranic commentary, the best reads, not just for this year, but perhaps over time, of books that they've lovingly curated for their stores and for their readers, of Quranic commentary, tafsir, or the Quran itself, and many ways in which young and old can find ways to get closer to the Quran, to really experience closeness to the Almighty Allah, and to find that kind of love. Um, my own personal favorite reads I've stuck out with is an old favorite, Quran and Women by Professor Wudud. Last year, I started reading Sheikh Ali Khalfi's A Fellowship of Faith, which is really a book that looks at a complete tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. And, and to take an entire book to explain just tells you how in depth the study is, going into the lexicon, going into the morphology, the understanding of the logic of the Arabic language, in really manifesting this language, this message of the beautiful Quran. And very recently, I received a read from Baitul Hikmah, a very contemporary young group of people a family-run bookstore that has taken itself online, reflecting on the names of Allah by Jinan Yusuf. It's such an incredibly beautiful read. And it's not a read you want to just whiz through. It's a read that you want to savor chapter by chapter, really engaging its content of the beautiful names. So, first up on the show, I want to introduce the director of Iqra Agencies in Lodium, a well-loved little space that expands with the amount of books inside of it. Uncle Musa Iqra has long been lovingly curating the space, and we welcome him today on the show together with his companion and reader and scholar of the Quran, brother Riaz Hassim. They're broadcasting from the store in Lodium right now. We've, if you've walked through that little space and seen how the energy of the store kind of wraps itself around you, you'll know what I'm talking about. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Book Bites, Uncle Musa. It's such a pleasure to chat to you online on the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much, Shafinaaz, for this opportunity. We thank you.
I think
Riaz,
that
by the way, happens to be your former neighbor.
I do remember, but I was about 5 or 6 years old when we lived in that area, and
Very young.
I do remember, and I remember his mom very fondly. So it's wonderful to have you on the show as well. I'm sure we're going to have an enlightening discussion, and I really want to chat. Uncle Musa, both as a child, as a reader, my dad always brought me into your store, and then for the last 15 years since I became an author, you have, you've supported and encouraged my writing so wonderfully. In particular, your bookstore has this magical something about it. I think put the Harry Potter stores to shame when it comes to how much of love you've generated for reading, for us young readers and older readers as well. Thousands of people have walked through your store. Talk to us about this process of curating a bookstore like this and choosing the material that you have. Because literally, you've got material from literally any corner of the world.
When it comes to choosing books, look, if I know the author, it's very simple for me to choose. When it comes to new authors, I'll either take some advice or recommendation from readers or people that are already in the know. There are lots of circles, and we are grateful that there are circles of learning. They would make recommendations. Of course, the greatest recommendation I've had always was from my own Sheikh, from Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Sufi al-Murabit, who's buried now in Cape Town. He always recommended to me, and I took the cue from him mostly, and from the beginning, especially.
I remember that you recommended some of his books to me many years ago, and I've got a small collection of some of his writing. The kind of writing that you can, whenever you pick it up, you're able to glean something new from these quite meaty volumes of his writings. In particular, today, because it's when you talk about access to scholarship, we've got amazing scholarship in our country, and we've got these circles of learning, like you've said. But Iqra Agencies is nothing short of a learning circle. Tell us about your favorite reads or your most recommended reads in terms of specifically relating to tafsir of the Quran. What's current, but also what over the years has been really, favorite and highly recommended reads.
Our favorite in the store has been Tafsir Jalalain. I'm just going to grab a copy to show it to you. Unfortunately, we do have some stock of the Tafsir Jalalain. This has been our favorite for more than 10 years now.
So you find a lot of students of tafsir going through this particular collection.
The Tafsir Jalalain is used in most madrasas and circles around the world. Now, I mean madrasas across the board. So it's a very accepted, it's a very orthodox tafsir of Quran. So we don't have a problem usually recommending that. And Riaz particularly loves it very much. And I know the translator. I know Haja Aisha Bewley, who's translated the tafsir as well as the translation of the Quran, which is used in there. So this has been extremely popular with us, and we love to. In fact, just a moment ago, we had somebody who walked in here, and we were showing her this. So Riaz, you're going to tell Shafinaaz a bit about the Jalalain itself, and then of course, my preference. I've had a favorite of Tafsir Tustari. I'm going to show you the Tafsir Tustari, which is very much a Sufic tafsir of Quran. So this may not be widely accepted, but it's very interesting because a little acquainted with students of the author. Sheikh al-Tustari is very famous in Sufic circles. And I've met people who are fully acquainted with Tustari's teachings. Therefore, I took to his tafsir.
I think it's interesting for scholars of Quran to be able to read widely, to be able to reach out with, in terms of wanting to gain a broader understanding and a deeper understanding of the Quran. Perhaps for older readers and those who have already been through the primary and the classical sort of narrations. Brother Riaz, come in for a bit and speak to us a bit about the earlier commentary that Uncle Musa spoke about.
Assalamu alaikum, Shafinaaz, how are you keeping?
Walaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah, we found that this tafsir Jalalain is a very famous one. It uses Arabic in the classical, in the traditional madrasas, and now it's been translated into English. So we're very fortunate to have such a work, and it's done by the two. Jalalain is in the dual form in Arabic, so it refers to the two Jalals, Jalaluddin as-Suyuti and Jalaluddin al-Mahali. So the student completed half and he passed away, and then the teacher, I think, completed the other half. It might be vice versa. But both these two scholars are widely recognized, especially as-Suyuti, who is also a traditional hadith scholar, historian. So basically, he's a polymath. He's a master of many disciplines, and in the Islamic tradition. So he's a very recognized and authentic scholar. And the other thing about this is that it also has a very concise tafsir, so it's not a very lengthy tafsir. So it's very good for beginners because it just gives you a small commentary on each verse. So you're very fortunate to have a work like this where we can access the basic understanding of the Quran or be introduced into tafsir by reading this concise work, which is about almost 1,000 pages. So it's a very good introduction, but very profound as well.
That's wonderful, and obviously it has far-reaching appeal. If it's been a favorite for one of the classical favorites.
Exactly. The thing we find recently, the Tafsir Jalalain especially appeals to younger readers and newcomers, beginners of understanding Quran, students that want to understand Quran a little more than just get translation. So they want this doesn't have a lot of detail. It doesn't have a lot of chronology, but it just has a little bit of extra detail which helps people a lot. Of course, there are some bigger tafsirs. A famous tafsir that's popular around the world and very easily accessible is the Ma'rif al-Quran. Ma'rif al-Quran is available in 8 volumes. And they're younger readers, middle-aged people, middle-aged readers, or people who have already read a little bit or are in circles, they find Ma'rif al-Quran very useful. Then there's Tafsir Osmani, who's done by the father of Tafsir Osmani, of the man who did Tafsir Osmani. So there has been a very great scholarship. Of course, the oldest tafsir of Quran is Tafsir Ibn Abbas. We have a copy here. I want to just show that to you. The Ibn Abbas, tremendous book. It's very heavy to carry as well, Shafinaaz. Not very easy to handle. But it's a thick book.
But perfect for any scholar of Quranic tafsir, because the bigger the book, the more the excitement to get into it. This conversation is also reminding me of the many times when one walks into your bookstore, and in any conversation you're able to pick out almost a title for any conversation and be able to bring it in, and you so joyfully share these reads. I enjoyed that you said that the tafsir was accessible to someone learning about Quran for the first time, especially a younger person. So it's a very accessible text. You find a lot of the older texts are sometimes difficult to get into because of the language with which they're written. Even if it's English, it's written in a somewhat verbose way. So talk to us about tafsir commentary now on the next level, so to speak. Scholars of Arabic and tafsir, like the one that you've just mentioned now, what sort of are the next level read for Quranic scholars?
Tafsir Ibn Abbas would follow perhaps the study of Jalalain because it's so old. But Tafsir Ibn Abbas can be very technical. Many people go to Tafsir Ibn Kathir. It's also very old. Tafsir Ibn Kathir runs into 2 volumes with the Arabic. That's a side-by-side translation of Quran, and then it has commentary next to it. The commentary is only in English. We don't have the commentary in Arabic. You have to buy the commentary separately in Arabic. That runs into about 5 volumes. I have a visitor here. I have to just welcome him, Shafinaaz. You know this visitor.
Let me check to.
You know KK?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. You can join the conversation. So we're having a live broadcast. I think what Uncle Musa doesn't know is KK is my mama. He's my mother's brother. So it's a perfect coincidence. This is a live broadcast, just so you know. And we're on the BookBytes show. We're just chatting about Quranic commentary with Uncle Musa in his beautifully curated little bookshop. And I think your community is very
Oh, yes,
lucky to have
it's a
Iqra
destination
juices.
store, Shafinaaz. It's a destination
And
store.
absolutely. But in particular, we've been asking, talking about the more classical text, but also I wanted to ask about the contemporary tafsir. There's so much of Sheikh Yasir
Qadi.
Qadi has written
Yasir Qadi.
recently.
Yes.
Asim Khan has written recently some beautiful texts. How do
And
those
also,
compare,
Shafinaaz,
especially for readers?
if I might add, Imam Al-Asi from the US as well. He's written the
He's got a
Ascendant
beautiful
Quran as
book.
well.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yes, I'm
there's
glad
so
you
much
mentioned that.
work out there,
I'm glad you
If I
mentioned
may
that. And
say,
then the message.
Shafinaaz, traditionally, tafsir, very old work. You have to point this out very clearly. You say that tafsir is very old. Recent translations are translations of Quran, and there would be some commentaries, but still not regarded as tafsir of Quran. Ibn Kathir, Ibn Abbas, Tustari, Al-Maibudi, Qurtubi, these are great mufassirun. These were great scholars. They had a lineage of teachers. They had teachers behind them whom they could easily quote. So their work is properly regarded as tafsir. There's the great volumes of commentaries coming out today and translations of Quran. Nuha Mim Keller has just released a very interesting tafsir of commentary, translation actually of Quran, I believe. I haven't seen it yet, but we are busy inquiring and making means to get copies in South Africa. Then, of course, like KK mentioned, there's Imam Al-Asi's work and this Muhammad Salim Sayyid Qutb's work, which is also not 100 years old. That's a very popular translation and commentary of Quran. But Sayyid Qutb not regarded as Mufassirun. Is still not classed amongst the great Mufassirun. But very useful. There are people that look at it today. In fact, we had an inquiry today on a full set of Sayyid Qutb's In the Shade of the Quran, which runs into 18 volumes. A very useful work there. Yasir Qadi is gaining great popularity today, not only on YouTube, but at the masajid in the northern hemisphere. He's very popular. When he came to South Africa, he was quite popular. And his work on Surah Yusuf, on Surah Al-Kahf, is very pertinent, very relevant to our time today. So that appeals to younger readers, very easily readable. So, and these are
Last
highly
year,
recommended reads today.
last year on the show, we also had Sheikh Yahya Ibrahim from Perth, and he's also written love stories from the Quran and various sort of, ways of engaging younger readers, ways of maybe contemporizing the stories or just finding a way to bring in younger readers in a way that makes, so it's not perhaps an in-depth study, but it is a sort of, I don't want to use the word modernize because that's not what they're doing, but just making it accessible in story form, so to speak. And so I find that, even though, yes, it's not comparable with the weightiness, the depth of tafsir, without a doubt, there are ways of engaging the youth and bringing the youth in. I mean, I don't know, Riaz, if you want to tell us, what has your experience been of younger readers wanting to learn about Quran? And maybe children in your family, or is it on the same level? You're a scholar in depth of Quranic study, but what is it? What has your experience been with
Yeah,
the younger
that's
generation?
scholar. Actually, look, I'm not a scholar, I'm just a student. So, my approach to the Quran has been a very simple one by the grace of Allah. About 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I realized I know nothing about the Quran. I've been speaking, I was in the Tabligh Jamaat for a long time, and I've been speaking about Allah and the Prophet. And then I realized that, I don't really know the Quran. So I needed a basis, authentic basis of to speak more on Allah and on the Prophet ﷺ, and on the religion. So that's when I got into deciding to read the Quran. So a very easy way of reading the Quran is first to read the matan, the text of the Quran, whereby we gain access to the basic understanding of what Allah SWT has given us, to gain the overall understanding and structure of the Quranic worldview and access the beauty and the majesty of the Quran. So would be the first basis. Like you said, we can't go into a lengthy tafsir because you first want to understand and systemize in your mind that what is Allah talking about. So there's a very nice book also in the bookshop called Al-Fawzul Kabir. There's the Way to the Quran by Khurram Murad. Al-Fawzul Kabir is by Shah Waliullah, the famous scholar from Delhi. These books give you an access on how to study, methodology of study, how to access the Quran. Sorry. Because the Quran basically speaks on its tibyan li kulli shay. It's an explanation to all things. So we need to know how to understand it. So we find that there's about five, sciences embedded in the Quran. The first is the Aqidah, the belief in who is Allah, who is the Prophet ﷺ, what is the nature of the year after, what is the law. So the first thing is Aqidah, understanding the nature of Allah and the nature of prophethood. The second thing be, the law. So there's about 550 verses in the Quran. It's out of the 6,200 and somewhat verses in the Quran that speak about law, jurisprudence. So that's about 550 verses. So we can see that the bulk of the Quran, which is less than 10%, the bulk of the Quran is not jurisprudence or law. It's got to do with other aspects and other dimensions of knowledge. So there's Aqidah, understanding who is Allah, the nature of Allah, how He relates to us, and how we should relate to Him. And then there's the law, which is 550 verses. And then there's the eschatology, the year after, the death, the barzakh, what happens in the grave, which is not many verses. But in detail, the day of judgment, heaven and hell, so that we may be warned and the great tidings may be brought forward to us. So this is very clear and easy verses. Doesn't require much scholarship or thought because the Quran is a very clear book. So most of it is very clear. As Allah said, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِذِكْرٍ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِّرٍ. And indeed, we have made the Quran easy for admonition and guidance. So is there anyone who will take it? So basically, we all have access to the Quran. We just have to follow the rules of going firstly to get a foundation of reading the Jalalain, reading the Tafsir Ibn Abbas. Tafsir, sorry, Tafsir Ibn Abbas is basically got about 3 explanations to every verse, every second verse, every third verse. So it's not a technical work, as Musa said. I think it's more, I've got it, I did possess it at one time, and it's got to do with 3 different explanations to the Quran. But the Quran is also an unfolding book, The Quran, the more a person brings sincerity to the Quran, the more a person becomes enamored by the beauty of the Quran and its majesty. And the more the person asks Allah to open it, then you enter into the domain of tadabbur. So tadabbur is reflection on the Quran. It's got to do with the reflection and contemplation on the Quran. So the Quran starts unfolding its meaning towards a person. So a person becomes more aware of what Allah SWT. So the Quran requires more, study, reflection, sincerity, accessing the tools of tafsir, and then we gain some depth into understanding. It's a never-ending journey, It's a journey that will take you till our final moments, till our death. So the Quran is a very, very lengthy journey. It's a very beautiful journey, and it's a very profound journey. So I'll advise all youngsters to immediately start. Don't delay. Many people like my father started studying tafsir at the age of, 60, 65, and or 70, and he's actually regretted that he started reading a bit late. But alhamdulillah, in the short time, he's accessed a lot of knowledge. My mother has also read the Quran, a few times in English, and my brother also. So I found that now there's an awakening in the whole world, and in South Africa particularly, that people are now looking for more deeper meaning to life. They're looking for more the beauty of Islam and the profundity, which unfortunately the Maulanas couldn't bring to us, of old, because they were more with the sticks and they were more. But alhamdulillah, they did give us the foundation of praying in reading, but there was a certain strictness. But now the beauty of this religion, its majesty, its profundity, its amazingness, is being brought to us, and we're accessing these books in this bookshop for the last 20 years. I've been sitting with Sidi Musa here, and trying to read the best books possible on different subjects, and just being amazed by the beauty of our religion. Any
Well,
other
may Allah
questions
grant
that you
us
think is?
companionship with the Quran, continued companionship with the
Ameen.
Quran,
Ameen.
and many more years of
There's a
inspiring, whether it's
lot
through
of
books.
work. Sorry.
Yes.
I said
Is this
recently
for
there's a
younger?
lot of work coming out for children as well on because teachers are asking scholars to produce material for children. This is a very interesting work that came out last year, the Clear Quran for Kids. It doesn't the entire Quran, but it covers some of the shorter surahs and the beginning of the Quran. And this makes for very interesting reading for children and teaching to children.
The other thing, Shafinaaz, besides the Quran, has many sciences embedded in it. So it's got Sufism in it, it's got law, it's got the year after. It's got the verses of nature. It's got a complete for life. So it's got to do with your social etiquettes. It's got to do with the self-development, just your character building. It covers your worship, it covers your belief, and it gives a complete worldview, of life itself. Like one of the biggest premises is that we're going to be tested. Look at Surah 29, Surah Ankabut. One of the first verses is that the people think that they believe, they say, Qalu amanna, that we believe, we say La ilaha illallah, and they will not be tested. So if you know that you're going to be tested, you're going to prepare yourself for the test. So it gives the answers as well. And also it develops your personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it brings that submission. So everyone wants to submit to Allah, they want to progress. So there's two types of people. One is a person who's progressing in worship, and he has this personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through worship, but he's lacking knowledge. And the other person is
There's a small bit of a break in transmission. We can hear you now.
So I don't know if there's any other questions, but we shouldn't be scared of studying the Quran. We shouldn't be scared of reading, and we shouldn't be afraid to move forward, because knowledge now is no more in the domain of any person. Allah subhanahu has opened up through reading. Everyone can access reading, and like this we can engage with the scholars in a more harmonious way, in a more profound way. We
Absolutely.
wants to speak to you, KK. Just a few words with him, please.
Salam, I didn't mean to gate crash, but since I am here, I just want to mention one thing. What is important, and I think you did allude to it, we need to make the Quran exciting to the young mind. And I think this is our greatest challenge, is that youth are restless, as we all know. Okay, we've been through it as well. And unfortunately, the ulama fraternity have kept this at a scholarly level. They've kept the book, Allah's book, at a scholarly level. And I think that's the mistake. However, this is being remedied by people like Imam Al-Asi and Yasser Qadi, and they sort of making it very contemporary. So as things are unfolding in this world, politically, socially, we see it all happening as if predicted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Noble Quran. It's all unfolding. So this is the thing that we need to make people aware, that now you go to your easy English commentary because you speak the English language, and now tie it together with what's happening around us. And as far as the kids are concerned, I think it starts in the home, to make things exciting. I think Musa did show you a book regarding making Quran exciting to the kids. The clear Quran. Let me just show it to you again. Maybe people can purchase a book like this. It's by Dr. Mustafa Khattab. And then, of course, there's another one, the Book of Quran, People for Kids. Now these are the type of thing, and we are fortunate that people are making the effort to put these books on the shelf. It takes, you're an author, right? I don't know if being gender equal author, authoress, I don't really know. But you're a writer, prolific writer. So you know that, what's appealing to the different genre. So I think this is important now that books like this are available, where we introduce our kids to the Quran. They must fall in love with the Quran. I think this is important. Don't keep it at a scholarly level. It's for everybody. Don't don't keep it for yourself. Don't be selfish. That's what I'm appealing to the powers, out there. Give it to the kids and give them what they require. Let them identify with the Quran. Beautiful stories of Musa alayhi salam, of Isa alayhi salam, and things like that, and Yusuf alayhi salam. Great stories from the Quran, emanating from the Quran. And of course, the situation currently vis-a-vis Palestine, Al-Quds, all this type of thing, the responsibilities that we have to take responsibility for the liberation of Palestine. I'm sorry to bring that in, but it's in the Quran. Allah tells us that's our first Qibla. So it belongs to us. It belongs to humanity. Nabi Karim came for humanity. You understand? So these things are now, Imam Al-Asi, if you read his tafsir or commentary, whatever you want to call it or diagnose it as, is so contemporary. It links up to what's happening currently politically in the world. So I think this is important. This is what the layman will find exciting, because he'll get information from the Quran and he'll fall in love with the Quran. The more you read it, the more you keep it, the more you identify with it, you will love it to bits. Believe you me, we can only grow with the Quran. That's my bird. Jazakallah, and talk to the other guys as well, inshallah. Shafinaaz, alhamdulillah, and thank you so much for doing all the good things that you are doing. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. Love to the family.
Wa alaikum salam. I just want to say this is so typical of what would happen if one walked into Iqra books. I just want to introduce that the speaker a few minutes ago is lovingly known as KK by all of us, because he's also my mom's first cousin. He's very beloved to me, and it's such a beautiful coincidence that he happened to walk in on the interview. Abdul Qadir Ismail in Lodium, a very highly respected, very well read, very well versed individual, that I'm also pleased to have regular engagement with. So it couldn't have worked out more beautifully, in my opinion. But also a very pertinent message from each of you about the Quran being so accessible in and of itself, about us not having these barriers to wanting to gain closeness and reading, whether it's through tafsir, commentary, the more contemporary versions, those made more amenable to children. And in many ways, everyone's looking for guidance, and you find more people picking up the Quran as a form of guidance, as a historical text, as a form of solace. Have we lost Uncle Musa to? I need to round up, and I was
No, I'm
hoping
right here.
to.
Right here. No,
We will require a small giveaway, I think, for our audience. I hope that somebody will be able to respond and make a comment during the next few days, and then they'll be able to hopefully come by and receive something of a message and a book from you.
by all means, I'll be very happy. Send 10 people. If you
We'll
send
choose
10
some.
people to
We'll
us,
choose a
we'll
winner
give
in the
10
week
books.
together. Inshallah, we'll choose a winner in the week together, and based on people commenting on this post, and you'll make a new friend in the week, inshallah. Uncle Musa, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciated this. I felt like I was sitting in your bookstore. I just didn't get the smell of the books. I'll have to rectify that soon,
We
inshallah.
thank you so much, Shafinaaz. It was a lovely opportunity. Thank you so much. It's a
And thank
celebration
you
of
to
the
Riaz
Umm
as
Kitab,
well.
the mother of all books.
I mean,
Thank you,
may Allah
Shafinaaz.
grant
May
us
Allah bless you and
understanding.
your family. Okay.
Ameen.
Thank you so
Ameen.
much.
Thumma ameen.
Keep
Jazakallah so much for your.
reading the Quran.
I don't believe in coincidence. It's
Thank you.
wonderful that you all were together in this little circle, and that I was able to join virtually with my audience.
Your uncle
Inshallah.
is your your former neighbor. You can't say ex-neighbor, former neighbor.
May Allah
And
grant us opportunity to meet again, inshallah.
thank you
Ameen.
so much.
Ameen. Ameen.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
So we had a wonderful opportunity to walk into Iqra agencies in Lodium virtually and get a real experience. Outside of Ramadan, Uncle Musa would have a hot pot of a flask of tea, and he would insist on everyone having cups of tea. And so I found it beautifully put together that this is how we experienced this little somewhat cramped but beautifully magical bookshop that gives so much of enlightenment to the community around it, and people searching, seekers of the path from far and wide, that follow through into the little bookshop. We also have a little bit of advice from Tazkiyyah Amra from Baitul Hikmah. She wasn't able to join us, but we have a little clip that we're going to play from her, which she so graciously put together for us, because this is the kind of inspiration that we're looking for. Good recommendations from people who have conscientiously curated this material for us. Let's see if we can get hold of the clip and listen to what Tazkiyyah Amra has to say, coming out of Durban, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm Tazkiyyah Amra and I'm coming to you from Baitul Hikmah's bookstore in Durban. I was asked by Shafinaaz Hassim, who runs the BookBytes segment, to talk a little bit about some of my favorite Tafsir and Qur'an works. I have many favorites, so I'll try to run through some of them for you now. Okay, so the first book that I really enjoy and really recommend for those who want to embark on a journey with the Qur'an, want to deepen their relationship with the Qur'an, is Way to the Qur'an by Ustad Quram Murad. This isn't a tafsir, it isn't a translation, rather it's an introduction to how to approach the Qur'an. How do you allow the Qur'an to transform your life? How do you study the Qur'an? How do you study the Qur'an with a group? What are some of the tools you can use to build your relationship with the Qur'an? Where does the Qur'an fit into your life as a Muslim? And then how do you allow the Qur'an to transform you inwardly and I guess outwardly? So this is Way to the Qur'an by Ustad Quram Murad, a prolific book. Many people come back to us and say this is one of their favorite books in terms of Qur'an. So definitely one of our top recommendations is Way to the Qur'an. And then in terms of a good translation of the Qur'an, I would recommend the majestic book Qur'an by Sheikh Musharraf Hussain. He's from the UK, a contemporary scholar. He's done an excellent job at translating the Qur'an in easy to understand way, language that modern readers would be familiar with. And he's also given us headings that cover each area of the particular chapter or the particular surah, which makes it much easier to read and to get an overview of the different subjects in the Qur'an. So this is available in English only, and it's also available side by side, English and Arabic. Actually one of the best-selling Qur'ans at the moment, the majestic Qur'an. And then when people are looking for actual tafsir works, they might be looking for books like Ibn Kathir or Ma'arif al-Qur'an. But I would recommend that if you're beginning your journey with tafsir, start with something smaller, because many of these other tafsir works are 8 volumes to 18 volume works, which is, I guess, a big commitment, and maybe you want to start with something smaller. So many of you will know Dr. Yasir Qadi from the US. He's written these 2 really wonderful tafsir works, one on Surah Kaf and one on Surah Yusuf. And these give you a detailed explanation in easy to understand language of these surahs, the lessons from the surahs, the stories in the surahs, some of the ayat that you might want to memorize. So these are by Sheikh Yasir Qadi, really excellent. I would definitely recommend these as like the beginner tafsir works. And then similar to Sheikh Yasir Qadi's, we have Sheikh Asim Khan's tafsir work. So he has The Kingdom of God, which is on Surah Mulk, and then The Heart of the Quran, which is on Surah Yasin. These are illustrated tafsir works. So a similar idea to what Sheikh Yasir Qadi is doing, but his is even illustrated. He has mind maps, he has diagrams, a great tool for studying in madrasa or even studying with the family at home. So one on Surah Yasin and one on Surah Mulk. So I also like that he started in the same way that Sheikh Yasir Qadi has started with surahs that we're quite familiar with, which makes it easier, I think, to get to grips with the content of the Qur'an. And then another tool to study Quran, especially for those who are learning Arabic or are learning tafsir in any way, is the glorious Quran word-for-word translation. A great tool if you want to improve your vocabulary of the words in the Quran or in Arabic. So it has the word-for-word translation in the middle, and then in the margins it has the ayah-by-ayah translation as well. So this is the glorious Quran, also excellent. And then we have a thematic commentary on the Quran by Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali. This is not a tafsir, this is not a translation, but rather a commentary on each surah in the Quran. So it gives you an overview of the stories in the Quran and the main lessons in the Quran. It's a bit text heavy, but definitely a great introduction if you want to understand the overall message of the Quran. Really, really wonderful. Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali is a prolific scholar of the past century. So definitely something that we would recommend. And then we have Journey Through the Quran by Sheikh Sharif Al-Banna, and he is from the UK, and this isn't a tafsir work either. This is a study tool that gives you an overview of each chapter of the Quran. It has mind maps in it. It has the key words of each surah, the key lessons, the key messages, the key du'as per surah, a summary of each surah, and you'll see it's also quite detailed, quite illustrated. So it's a tool to study alongside the Quran. And then every Ramadan, he actually has a free online course going through Journey through the Quran. And then my last recommendation, which is something that's a little bit difficult to get hold of at the moment, the Study Quran. This is edited by Dr. Nasser Hussain, also a prolific scholar, quite elderly now. He's originally from Persia. What they've basically done is taken all the classical tafsirs like Ibn Kathir or the tafsir of Riaz and summarized it in this collection. So a great tool if you are at university or writing papers on the Quran, but also if you just want an introduction to all of these classical tafsirs. We might not be able to read Razi and Ibn Kathir quickly, but we could definitely approach the Study Quran and get the main ideas of all of these classical works. Okay, so that's all from me in terms of my recommendations for Quran.
And so there we heard from Tazkiyyah Amra of Baitul Hikmah, a fantastic array of various forms of commentary, tafsir, and contemporary works where one might gain deeper understanding. I'm glad she brought up Journey Through the Quran. I've just completed the course with Sheikh Sharif Al-Banna and highly recommended both the book with its mind maps and the full-length course, which was spread over 3 weekends of 10 hours each. And so that's it from me for this week's show. I think we've had a wonderful discussion. I hope it's inspired many of you and given you a sense of what's out there, what's available, and will enhance your reading of the Quran over the rest of this month and onward, inshallah. That's it with us on BookBytes this week, and we look forward to chatting again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.